from the National News Studio, Sri Lanka.
Good evening. Welcome to the National News telecast here on Channel I Rupawahini. I'm Ovin Hettiarachchi, joined together with Dulanjali Ananda. At first, a look at the headlines. Sri Lanka to receive another 300 million yuan worth of financial assistance from China. A relief allowance for low-income earning families in the face of the economic crisis. A cabinet subcommittee to take measures to stabilize the cost of living. Fuel distribution normalizes following the suspension of the strike action. Britain claims Russian troops continue to weaken from the Ukrainian offense. Now on to those and more stories in detail. On today's top story, Eid-ul-Fitr celebrates the end of the month-long fasting period of Ramadan. Marking the ceremony, special prayers were held in mosques today. Islam devotees observed the fasting period last month. The Eid-ul-Fitr ceremony is celebrated today following the completion of the month-long fasting period. The event is commemorated with the hope that Almighty Allah would accept the desires and aspirations of the devotees. This is considered a tradition to pray for the blessings of the Almighty Allah for a prosperous life following the Ramadan fasting period, which is conducted by all without any discrimination. It is significant that Islam devotees engage in Zakat-ul-Fitr religious observances before today's morning prayer. Meanwhile, a special prayer marking the Ramadan day was held in Gal Face Green today. The Ramadan prayer, organized by Sri Lanka Memon Organization, was held after completing the fasting period. The Ramadan prayer was conducted by Khalum Muhammad Mualawi. Meanwhile, many Ramadan Day prayers were conducted in every mosque in the country today.
Now, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa, in his message for the Eid-ul-Fitr, says that the Muslim community celebrating Eid-ul-Fitr after the month of fasting seeks the blessings of the God according to their belief. In his message for Eid-ul-Fitr, the President conveyed his wishes to all Muslim devotees to attain the spiritual healing they seek. Ramadan is one of the most important festivals in the Islamic religious calendar. The Muslim community is expected to receive a mental stimulus to practice good deeds every day according to the religious principles of Allah. Cultural relations among them through harmonious meetings, collective compromise, sacrifice, redemption from evil, practice of goodwill during the Ramadan period lead to social progress. Such exemplary practices should be spread among all the people. The philosophy of all theologians is based on its principle of salvation. Accordingly, the President has said that the long time the celebration of Ramadan in Islamic philosophy, including other beliefs of the religion and adhering to the message given by these teachings and applying that message for the betterment of the society, lead to the development of mutual understanding. It affirms interreligious socio-cultural understanding, the message further cited. In his Eid-ul-Fitr message, Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa said that during the most important month of the Islamic calendar, it is a great task for all the devotees to take a spiritual step away from worldly life in order to understand life. The Prime Minister's statement has further indicated that the goal is to achieve an ideal life by focusing only on the good deeds during the fasting month of Ramadan. Therefore, it is commendable that during the fasting period of Ramadan, the devotees focus only on good deeds. Understanding the pain of the starving person and the value of charity are the precious life values gained during fasting, he further added. The Premier has indicated that the Muslim devotees have successfully completed the fasting period of Ramadan following the noble virtues associated with fasting according to the Quran, and it is in his belief that now the opportunity is to socialize its spiritual lessons. Opposition leader Sajid Premadasa, issuing a message on the Eid-ul-Fitr, has wished for a Ramadan day with the inspiration to rebuild the motherland by prioritizing mutual compassion, immense brotherhood and concessionary customs. Now, the government of China has decided to extend another financial assistance worth 300 million yuan to Sri Lanka to procure essential commodities, including medicinal drugs, food items, fuel and other necessities.
This financial assistance will be extended as a result of a telephone conversation that took place last 22nd between the Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa and the Prime Minister of China, Li Keqiang. During the telephone conversation, Prime Minister of China, Li Keqiang, has informed the Sri Lankan Premier that Chinese government is fully aware over the difficulties and challenges faced by Sri Lanka at present, and the fullest support will be extended to improve the livelihoods of the people. Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa extended his gratitude to the Chinese Premier and the Chinese government for the continuous support given for Sri Lanka at this difficult situation. Accordingly, Prime Minister's office has said that the latest financial assistance, China has extended around 500 million yuan worth of financial assistance, which is approximately $76 million to Sri Lanka to mitigate the prevailing crisis situation in the country. Meanwhile, the government has decided to extend the special relief package to families distressed due to the current economic crisis from this month to July.
Accordingly, the Cabinet of Ministers has granted approval to provide a cash allowance for the respective families under the scheme. Necessary funding for this project will be provided through the World Bank Group. A 2,000 rupee allowance is already being extended as elderly allowance. An additional allowance worth 3,000 rupees will be provided for the elderly community. Accordingly, a person entitled for the elderly allowance will now receive 5,000 rupees worth allowance. Those who are above the age of 100 years will now receive an overall allowance worth 7,500 rupees following the inclusion of an additional allowance of 2,500 rupees. The disability allowance, which is at 5,000 rupees, has been increased up to 7,500 rupees with an additional allowance of 2,500 rupees. Those who are entitled for the disability allowance will receive the renewed allowance until July. The allowance extended for persons with kidney-related diseases is at 5,000 rupees at present. They are expecting to receive 7,500 rupees worth allowance with an additional allowance worth 2,500 rupees. The persons entitled for Samurdhi allowance, which is at 1,900 rupees, will now receive 5,000 rupees under the new allocation with an additional allowance of 3,100 rupees. A family which entitles for the Samurdhi allowance worth 3,200 rupees will be provided with an additional allowance of 3,100 rupees, increasing the overall allowance to 6,300 rupees. A family entitled for Samurdhi allowance worth 4,500 rupees will receive an additional allowance of 3,000 rupees, increasing the overall allowance to 7,500 rupees. Cabinet of Ministers has granted approval for an allowance of 5,000 rupees for the families included in the waiting list of the Samurdhi allowance. Minister Shehan Singh has said that the relief will be provided for 3.34 million family units at a cost of 13,364 million rupees for the next 3 months. He said that the World Bank Group continues to assist financially and provides technological assistance to the country to provide this allowance for the affected families under the economic situation and to rebuild the economy. Accordingly, he said that $167 million will be allocated to provide the additional allowance for the financially deprived families.
ලෝක බැංකුව විසින් ලබා දෙන මේ මූල්‍ය පහසුකම් සහ තාක්ෂණික පහසුකම් භාවිතා කරලා මේ කටයුත්ත සිදු කරන්න බලාපොරොත්තු වෙනවා. ඒ අනුව ඇමරිකානු ඩොලර් මිලියන 167ක මුදලක් මේ මාස 3ක කාලය සඳහා මේ මම කියපු කණ්ඩායම් වලට මේ අමතර දීමනාව ලබා දෙන්න අපි කටයුතු කරනවා.
An inquiry was made over the issues pertaining to the payments required to be made for the education of students abroad. Minister Nalaka Godaheva said that considering the issues pertaining to the payments required to be made for the education of students abroad, the central bank governor decided to direct the banking system to make the necessary payments on the grounds of humanitarian requirements. Now, the Cabinet of Ministers has decided to appoint a subcommittee to provide the necessary policy and practical solutions to keep the cost of living stable.
The subcommittee is chaired by the President and comprised of the Prime Minister, Ministers and State Ministers. The Cabinet of Ministers has decided to appoint a subcommittee to study the contents of the report and make appropriate recommendations. The Cabinet of Ministers decided to appoint a committee consisting of legal experts under the chairmanship of the President's Council, Ramesh De Silva, to draft a new constitution on September 9, 2020. The preliminary report of the committee was submitted to the President on April 25th. The Cabinet of Ministers has also granted approval to set up a subcommittee comprising of ministers to identify investment opportunities that have a potential to attract foreign investment expeditiously as a solution to the current foreign exchange crisis in the country. The committee will be headed by Minister Nalaka Godaheva. The Cabinet of Ministers has granted approval to implement a pilot project to introduce digital gateway for the passengers departing from Terminal 1 of Katnayaka Bandaranaike International Airport. The Minister Prasanna Ranthunga presented the relevant proposal. Accordingly, check-off passengers will be an easy process to complete through confirming they possess a valid digital passport for identification of passenger by installation of an electronic door or face recognition machines at the access point of the departure lounge. Cabinet of Ministers granted approval for the proposal presented by Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa to declare late Nadungamuye Raja as a national heritage, considering the invaluable service and contribution rendered by the tasker for carrying the casket of pageant of the Temple of the Tooth for 13 times from the year 2005 to year 2021.
The fuel distribution activities resumed this morning after the Lanka Petroleum Private Tanker Owners Association decided to suspend the strike action. Meanwhile, Minister Kanchana Wijesekara said that approval has been granted to purchase fuel from another 4 oil tankers in the future under a $200 million worth short-term credit loan facility. The Sri Lanka Petroleum Private Tankers Owners Association decided to call off the strike action after reaching an agreement with relevant stakeholder to increase the transport charges by 30%. Accordingly, Bowsers were seen queued in front of the Kolonnawa terminal to obtain fuel this morning. Filling station owners said that adequate quantities of petrol and diesel are being received at present. Minister Kanchana Wijesekara said that adequate quantities of fuel are available in the country until another stock of fuel are expected to be arrived in the country in future. Speaking at the media briefing held to announce his cabinet decisions today, the minister made remarks over the acquisition of required fuel to the country in future. Minister Kanchana Wijesekara said that bids have been invited for 4 procurements to purchase diesel and petrol under the $200 million short-term loan facility provided off the Export-Import Bank of India. Accordingly, the Cabinet of Ministers approved the proposal. Meanwhile, Minister Kanchana Wijesekara in a tweet said that the Ceylon Electricity Board has informed over a technical fault in the 270 megawatt generator at the Norachole power plant. Reports have indicated that repairs of the generator are currently underway and the relevant work will be completed within a period of 5 days. The minister has further indicated that necessary measures will be taken to manage the power supply without prolonging the power interruptions through the operations of terminal and hydropower plants. The power supply will not be interrupted today due to the Ramadan Day festival, and a power interruption of 3 hours and 20 minutes will be in place in zones from A to L and P to W tomorrow.
World Tuna Day falls on May 2nd. Tuna fish is globally popular for its healthy and tasty meat. Many countries heavily depend on tuna resources for their food and security and nutrition, besides economic development, employment, livelihood, and even recreation. World Tuna Day is observed every year on May 2nd to spread awareness among people on tuna fish. The first Tuna Day was recognized globally on May 2nd, 2017. The United Nations marked the day to spread awareness on the sustainable fishing practices and make people know how tuna is threatened by overwhelming demand. Tuna and tuna-like species include approximately 40 species occurring in the Atlantic, Indian and Pacific Oceans and in the Mediterranean Sea. In the recent times, reportedly more than 80 countries have tuna fisheries and number is constantly growing. As per United Nations, over 7 million metric tons of tuna are harvested yearly and they play a significant role in the global fish markets. They hold 20% of value in the all marine capture fisheries. Tuna also marks 8% of globally traded seafood. Rich in omega-3 minerals, proteins and vitamin B12, tuna has various other advantages as well. But the superfish is a victim of its own amazing qualities and nutritional properties, threatened as it is by overwhelming demand from the human population. In 2017, among 7 principal tuna species, 33.3% of the stocks were estimated to be fished through biologically unsustainable levels. Addressing the decline in tuna stocks resulting from overfishing, over 96 countries are involved at present for the conservation and management of tuna, which is an annual value of almost $10 billion. Many programs have been initiated through UN agencies for the conservation of tuna species, and these initiatives have begun to show positive results in reducing overfishing.
Now, Janata Vimukti Peramana present a stock of files related to fraud and corruption alleged to have taken place in the recent past to the media today. This event was held at the Sri Lanka Foundation. Leader of Janata Vimukti Peramana, Anura Kumar Disanayake, said that they took the decision to socialize details and information pertaining to fraud and corruption incidents. He added that the presented files are only a handful of cases in the massive fraud and corruption incidents which had taken place in the country. He said that State Administration Group is behind the corruption circle and it consists of secretaries and directors. He added that this circle expands to various other sectors including judiciary. He further said that certain entities revealed through Pandora Papers. He added that the expose revealed that Thiru Nadeshan and Nirupama family alleged to have ownership for $160 million worth assets. He also made remarks over the Ging Nilvala deal in 2014, which saw 1,000 million rupees through the project was never materialized. He also added that the issue pertaining to irregularities related to Central Cultural Fund under 146 expenditure heads. He said the relevant expenditures had been carried out without any approvals, and direct evidence suggests that these irregularities were carried out under the directives of former Minister Sajid Premadasa. Therefore, he pointed out that nearly 3 billion rupees worth financial fraud had occurred through these irregularities. He also shared remarks over a case pertaining to the alleged misuse of a defender which had been used by 2 former ministers. He added that the investigation report has indicated that the vehicle parts had been removed when handing over the relevant vehicle.
The 6th Executive President's Office has issued a special statement over a statement made at the media briefing organized by the Janata Vimukti Peramana, an anti-corruption voice organization at the Sri Lanka Foundation. During the media briefing, the convener of the Corruption Voice organization, Vasantha Samarasinghe, has alleged that a portion of the central bank bond scam fund had been given to the then President Maithripala Sirisena and his family members. The 6th Executive President's Office has vehemently rejected this allegation levelled by the convener of the Anti-Corruption Voice organization, Vasantha Samarasinghe. The officer has further indicated that all necessary measures will be taken against this hate speech for making allegations on innocent without any basis and solely for political gains. National Freedom Front says several main stakeholders have agreed to resolve the issues pertaining to the country through an interim government.
Parliamentarian Jayantha Samaravira, representing the independent faction, has said that negotiations are underway in this regard. MP Jayantha Samaravira said that once all parties in the parliament should reach a national agreement, a common agenda will be presented over a national consensus governing process to overcome the prevailing economic issues. He said that this is the proposal presented through the independent faction. Sri Lanka Broadcasters Association decided to initiate a joint program for the next 12 months.
Remarks were shared in this regard during a media briefing held in Colombo today. Experts in financial sector emphasize on the need for a stable government for economic stability. Sri Lanka Broadcasters Association has alleged that the country's main political parties are yet to make any progress effort in this regard. According to a special attention will be directed to this issue, all news and current affairs through programs in the future. Sri Lanka Broadcasters Association has pointed out that people can be equipped for a possible economic, political and social crisis by creating awareness over the issues among the masses.
The General Secretary of Samajana Balavega, Ranjit Madhuba Bandara, said that 2 no-confidence motions against the President and the government had been handed over to the Speaker. The relevant motions were handed over at the official residence of the Speaker this evening. Meanwhile, Dr. Prathipa Mahanamaheva made remarks over the no-confidence motions submitted by the Samaga Jana Balawegaya.
According to 1978 Constitution, if President or Prime Minister and Cabinet, if they want to remove from their seats, then against the Prime Minister and the Cabinet, you must come up with a non-confidence motion. So non-confidence motion, you must have significant signatures. Thereafter you hand over that, then it goes to the order paper. Thereafter what will happen, then they go for a vote. If 113 votes are there, yes, non-confidence motion will be winning, and thereafter the government has to step down and a new government appointed. But against the president, according to 1978 Constitution, Article 38(2)(a), you must come with the impeachment motion. What is the impeachment motion? This is where very clearly say if the president cannot carry out his duties according to his mental and physical situation, and if he had taken bribes and misconduct and taking some types of illegal activities and breach of the constitution, then they must come up with the impeachment motion. According to the impeachment motion, you need 2/3 signatures, and the Speaker must satisfy with that. Thereafter, it will present to the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court hear the case. Once again, the decision hand over Parliament. Parliament must pass this with a 2/3 majority. Then only it will be vacated. The post will be vacated. So therefore, it is very clear there is no provision in the Constitution. The President can be removed or must be removed with a non-confidence motion only by an impeachment motion.
Now, the new website and the YouTube channel of the Central Cultural Fund were launched today.
The event was held under the patronage of Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa at the Temple Trees. The objective of the initiative is to promote the culture and heritage of Sri Lanka locally and internationally and to enhance tourist attraction. The new website can be accessed through ccf.gov.lk, and the new YouTube channel has been named Our Heritage. Central Cultural Fund is the foremost agency in Sri Lanka to manage the country's cultural heritage and tasked with conservation of historical and archaeological sites, conducting research and surveys, and the development of human resources in the archaeological sector. The institution, which commenced with 6 archaeological sites based on cultural triangle, has continued to provide its service to the other parts of the country as well. The Central Cultural Fund assists management of 24 main archaeological sites in the country. Secretary to the Prime Minister, Anuruddha Sanayaka, and Secretary to the Ministry of Buddha Sasana, Religious and Cultural Affairs, Professor Kapila Gunawardena, were present on the occasion.
The Minister of Finance says that the news article published on the Sunday Times newspaper under the title Indian Credit for Food Goes to Import Steel was based on false information. The article was published on May 1st. The Sri Lanka received $1 billion worth credit facility agreement from India to import essential food items, medicine and industrial raw material. The credit line facility arrangement is to import food and other essential items due to the shortage of foreign currency in the banking system and the market. The credit line was initially allocated for importation of essential food items at a provision of $300 million, medicine under a provision of $200 million, and $500 million worth provision of industrial raw material. However, the ministry has indicated that the allocations were reviewed again for different subcategories based on the current needs, prioritizing essential food items, medicine, fuel and LP gas. Accordingly, the Finance Ministry has dismissed the news article published under the title Indian Credit for Food Goes to Import Steel as false information.
A gazette has been issued imposing a maximum retail price for rice. Accordingly, a maximum rate of 220 rupees has been imposed for a kilogram of local white and red nardo rice. The maximum rate for kilogram of local white and red samba is 230 rupees. Meanwhile, 260 rupees is the maximum price for a kilogram of local kiri samba.
Now, today is the 25th day of the people's protest in front of the Presidential Secretariat in Golf Face Green. Large crowds were gathered at the protest site last night as well. Various groups were protesting in front of the presidential secretariat while shouting slogans, and social activists were seen sharing their views and opinions with the masses at the protest site. Correspondents have indicated that dialogues on legal aid, musical programs and various other initiatives were held at the protest site. A special prayer was also organized at the protest site celebrating the Ram Sunday this morning.
The Met Department says showers or thunder showers will occur at times in western and Sabaragamuwa districts and in Galle and Mathura districts. Fairly heavy showers above 50 millimeters may occur in several areas in Sabaragamuwa province and in Kalathura, Galle and Mathura districts. Showers or thunder showers may occur in several places in central, Uva and eastern provinces and in Hambantota district during the evening times. Several spells of showers may also occur in coastal areas of Puttalam district as per the Met Department. The final rites of the late actor Wilson Karunaratne is set to be held tomorrow at Kirlapana Public Cemetery.
He passed away while receiving treatments at the Kalabowila Hospital this morning. He was 79 years of age at his demise. Born on October 28, 1942, Wilson Karunaratne entered into Sri Lankan cinema in the year 1974 with the film Hadawatha Natto. With a record number of portrayals of villain characters in cinema, he was renowned for his action sequences as a stuntman. He was the most popular stunt actor in the 70s, 80s and the 90s Sri Lankan cinema. He had also acted in many films including Hadawatha Natto, Jeevanaganga, Saradiyal Geputa and Ko Haturo. The remains of the late Wilson Karunaratne are laid at the private funeral parlour in Borella, and the final rites will take place at 3 p.m. tomorrow. That's all the news we have on local news. Stay tuned for international stories coming up after this.
Now on to foreign news. We are looking at the situation in Ukraine. Russia has said that it is attacking offensive positions adopted by the Ukrainian troops in Mariupol's sweeping Azovstal steel plant and the last stronghold of the Ukrainian fighters.
Meanwhile, a convoy carrying more than 100 civilian evacuees from Mariupol have reached government-controlled area. The head of the International Committee of the Red Cross ICRC in Ukraine says that an unknown number of civilians remain trapped in Mariupol and surrounding areas. Russian forces are fighting to control strategically important port city of Mariupol since the beginning of the war. Russian forces are shelling and bombing offensive positions adopted by Ukrainian troops at the sprawling Soviet-era Azovstal steelworks in Mariupol. A spokesman for the country's defense ministry says Russian army units and fighters from the self-proclaimed Donetsk People's Republic using artillery and aircraft to destroy the offensive positions.
Now on to sports news. The Indian Premier League is in full swing in India. In Mumbai, yesterday's match between Kolkata Knight Riders and Rajasthan Royals, Kolkata Knight Riders managed to snag a victory.
Batting first, Rajasthan Royal managed to put up a total of 152 runs for the loss of 5 wickets for their innings. Captain Sanju Samson scored 54 runs. Tim Southee picked up 2 wickets for Kolkata. Kolkata Knight Riders were able to chase down the target of 153 runs in the 19th over while only losing 3 wickets. Nitish Rana scored 48 runs while Rinku Singh scored 42 runs. Accordingly, Kolkata Knight Riders secured a 7-wicket victory.
That's for tonight's English News telecast. Thank you for joining us. Good night.